This is my Nespresso machine. Or at least it used to be. Because this one is not making anything you would call coffee anymore. Now my wife took it apart a year or so ago and gave it a good once over. But now we've realized it's past the point of no repair. But this foamer though seems to be in a good nick. Would be a shame to throw it away. Now I have a sneaking suspicion that all the important electronics are contained within the foamer itself, making the base for it just a glorified socket, providing the AC current. But there's only one way to find that out. You guessed it, we're taking it apart. Now of course Nespresso used some fancy screws with a locking pin in them, but I guess they didn't calculate on me not wanting to put it back together again. So I just found a screwdriver that almost fit and applied enough force for it to work. Because you know the old saying, if a hammer don't work, you're not using a big enough hammer. Now, to be fair, I did use longer than expected taking this apart. But to my defense, I wanted to save the base, because that's gonna be the internals for the, well, standalone unit I'm planning of making out of it. But we got her in the end. And as a pleasant surprise, my suspicions turned out to be correct. The base is just a glorified socket with the, well, basically live neutral and ground wire coming straight into the foamer, which is making my job a hell of a lot easier. But before that, we need to scour for some more parts, for some later projects. So, roll the montage. Sorry. I cannot go through with this. I can't with a good conscience make you sit through and watch me take a Nespresso Coffee Maker apart for parts that are not even relevant for this project. So let me just give you the headliners. I got a heating element out of it. I got a low pressure feed pump, high pressure pump, motor with a gearbox, various gears, switches and other thingamabobs. So let's just move on and forget this thing ever happened. And after a minor cleaning session, it was time to attack the base. And of course, Nespresso used the same shitty screws when putting together the bottom assembly. So this time I used a different tactic. I found the drill bit and I drilled out the locking pins of every screw. And then they came loose with a regular Torx bit like there was no tomorrow. And then there's just some more footage of me staring at the thing, cause at this point I really didn't have a plan. Which is usually the case for all of my projects. I just have a notion of an idea, and then I run with it. And to not end up thinking too much about it, while I was cutting the wires, I decided, why not cut the base from the rest of the assembly? So that's what I did. And voila! Now we have a standalone base. Now we just have to make it pretty. Which meant some more staring and thinking and pondering and some more staring. Trying the foamer on and seeing that it fits, as if it shouldn't, since they were built to fit together. But lo and behold, after some thinking and trying and some more thinking, it worked out in the end. I had sort of an epiphany. I decided I wanted to make an oak ring that will go around the base. Now I didn't want to use my big oak slab for this, so I found some cutoffs from another project and figured I'm gonna glue these together so they're big enough for me to throw them on the CNC and make a ring. But before I can do that, I need to square off the edges so I have a decent surface to glue. And as in any of my videos, there is a point where I realize, well, this is boring. I even bore myself when I'm doing these voiceovers. And to be honest, if I'm bored, you're probably bored as well. Because here you're just gonna see me gluing together two pieces of wood before I'm slapping them on a CNC router. And who wants to see that? Nobody. Even I don't want to see that. I just start the CNC and I leave because it's boring. And still I have several hours of raw footage of the CNC machine, which I can't get myself to delete because I never delete anything, which again means I have to have a lot of hard drive capacity to store all that useless footage. Footage which will never be shown to anyone. At least not anyone finding it interesting. So, could I cut this video down so I didn't have to show you all this and speak to myself? Yes. Yes, I could. But you see, my computer is now so old and the video editing software I'm using is so memory consuming that it's almost not up to the task. Which means that I don't want to do any more video editing than strictly necessary. And I don't want to spend the money on a new computer just yet. I was hoping to stretch it until Christmas. Because gifts. Now I know a spec'd out laptop is probably not something someone is gonna give me as a gift. So I'm gonna have to buy it for myself. But at least I can feel better about it, being Christmas and all. So, yeah. As I've been ranting away about my computer, the CNC machine has finished off the ring. And then there's some vacuuming to be done. Which of course is something you want to see, so I left it in there. Because who doesn't want to see someone vacuuming? And after a short test to see if it's gonna fit, it's time to, well, release the ring from the block. Then some quick tidying up at the router table and we're off to assembly. And here is the fun part. Turns out I made it a smidge too tight, so when I tried to press fit it, the ring broke. And here you can see it in slow motion and pay attention to that dust flying off while it cracks. Now the ring cracking leaves me a couple of options. One, I could make a new ring with bigger tolerances, but that's boring. I could of course sand it down, after gluing it back together again of course, but that's even more boring. Which leaves me with the last alternative. I'll put an inlay in, maybe with some contrasting wood or something. I think I have something laying around. But first of all I need to glue it back together, so that I can cut it open again, but with a cleaner surface for gluing the inlay in. And given the fact that I only have a few hours every night, which I talked about earlier in the video, this project is now gonna slide into the next day. But hey, it's not like I'm on a deadline or anything. Except I'm 40 and not getting any younger. So let's focus on the positive side. I get to do some more glue up. Now for the inlay I chose teak, because that's what I had laying around. and I thought it was gonna look good. Turns out, which you're gonna see later when I put oil on it, it didn't give the contrast that I really wanted. But then again, I couldn't be bothered going back and fixing it, so well, it is what it is. And then some more cutting and fitting and gluing and waiting. Did you realize that that is basically every woodworking video on YouTube? Someone starting out with some wood, and then there's a lot of cutting, planing, shaping, gluing, waiting, and then putting oil on it, and voila, you start all over again. And after the glue is set, I use a chisel to take away as much of the inlay as possible before I take it over through the sander. Unfortunately, that's not gonna work on the inside. So there, I'm gonna have to go old school. Although, I don't need to go too much, because this is gonna be on the inside and it's gonna be covered up by the base for the steamer. I only have to make sure that it doesn't stick out as much that it will put strain on the ring again and making it snap for a second time, because that would be a pain in the ass. What you see me doing here is making a sign. A sign that's gonna go on the side of the oak ring. Now, did it need a sign? No. Did I fuck up over at the sander, leaving a mark that now needs to be covered up? Yes. And the best way of doing that? Slap a sign on it. Because then it's gonna look like it was planned to be like that from the beginning. Ha! Big brain move. And finally, assembly. Well, and some minor electrical work. A top tip here is always put your heat shrink tubes on before you solder the wires together. I never seem to remember this, because basically on every project I just start soldering wires together and then later realizing, oh no, I forgot the heat shrink tubes. But then again, redoing work builds, well, what does it build really? Aggravation, anger, resent. Yeah, sounds about right. And as a finishing touch, I swapped out those shitty Nespresso screws with some proper torque screws. And there you have it. The completed project. All that remains now is rubbing oil on it. Best part of every project. Best part of anything really. Rubbing oil on stuffs. Oil.